This is email, and I'm bothered, I'm upset, and we need to do something. These executive orders is outrageous. We need to go ahead and figure out where the shredder is at. So we ain't got the Ninja Turtles. We ain't got the FBI. We don't have the CIA. We don't have none of those 3 or 4 letters. All we have is a bird watcher and a person who wants change to happen. If you like change, help for democracy. Come join. Keep watch. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time it is, I hope you're doing well. You're here with email, and we're going to be going over the executive order watch. And today, we're going to be focused on the executive orders for March, as well as 2 other executive orders, which will be the 14253 and the 14240 case order, where it will be focused on eliminating waste and saving taxpayer dollars by consolidating procurement, which is 14240, as well as restoring truth and sanity to American history, which will be 14253. When we look at these, by their title, sounds good, but we're going to actually go through all of the bits and pieces of it. So let's go ahead and dive into it. All right. So we're going to be looking at the executive orders streaming from March 2025. Hold on. Yeah, from March 2025. Let's go ahead and look at it. And so Executive Order 14225. This will be immediate expansion of American timber production. Very important. Signed March 1st, 2025. Executive Order 14224, which is the designating English as the official language of the United States, which is kind of important, which was signed on the same day. Executive Order 14223, essentially 3 executive orders signed on the same day, addressing the threat to national security from imports of timber, lumber, and their derivative products, which was not that important to us. The next one, which is 2 of them that were signed on the same day, Executive Order 14227 and also 14226. The 227 will be amendments to duties to address the situation at our southern border, which is not important, kind of redundant. And then another one, which was similar, which will be amendment to the duties to address the flow of illicit drugs across our northern border, which was not that important. The next day, it was only one that was signed, Executive Order 14228, which was further amendment to duties addressing the synthetic opioid supply chain in the People's Republic of China, which was not important, at least to our understanding. Another one that's not that important again, which would be, and again, I'm just going through not important, important to very important. Another one that will be not important to us, but may be important to some, would be honoring Jocelyn Nunjari, which was signed March 4th. On March 6th, it was apparently more than it's three of them that were signed, which the first one will be establishment of the strategic Bitcoin reserve in U.S. digital asset stockpile, which was very important. Then the next one, which will be 14231, amendment to duties to address the flow of illicit drugs across northern border, not important. We've already established that, well, if you've been paying attention, Canada does not have an illicit drug problem. Then we have Executive Order 14230, addressing risk from Perkins Coal LLP. This was not important to us. There's a lot of other ones that are important to the Perkins Coal LLP. It may be important. In fact, I feel like thinking about the fact that they may be going for a limited liability partnership, that is actually very important. It's just that there's so many things that we have to go over that we're not going to highlight it just yet. We may have to go back and amend that. So Executive Order 14235, restoring public service loan forgiveness. This is important. And I am kind of biased because we all have student loans. So this is for the American people. That's important. If you're not in America, or if you are trade by trade, or you don't have any kind of student loans, it's not important to you. Or if you come from money, then it's not important. But for the working class, it may be a little important, especially if you owe like $100,000 worth of student debt. All right. So Executive Order 14234, establishing the White House Task Force on the FIFA World Cup 2026. This was, in my estimate, was not important, just because there's so many other things that is important again. Executive Order 14238, which will be continuing the reduction of the federal bureaucracy. Very important. This was signed on March 14. And the reason why it's very important is because it's looking to downsize all of the services that we're currently enjoying. Executive Order 14237, addressing risk from Paul Wise. This was not important, but it really is very important, just because it's like targeting people that are challenging him. So at the same time, I didn't put that it was important in the beginning. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put a side note that to go over it later. All right, let's go on to the next thing. Executive Order 14236, additional rescission of harmful executive orders and actions. This is very important. Again, we've already went over that, but we will go over it more. The next executive order, March 18th, Executive Order 14239, achieving efficiency through state and local preparedness, which was important. It was not considered very important, but it was considered important. Executive Order 14243, stop waste, fraud, and abuse by eliminating information silos. This was seen as very important. On the same day, March 20th, it was three other executive orders that were signed. Executive Order 14242, improving education outcomes by empowering parents, states, and communities. This is important. It sounds good at its face, but considering the fact that one of your executive orders was to demolish the Department of Education, we're going to have to look into that a little deeper. Executive Order 14241, immediate measures to increase American mineral production. This was seen as very important. Production of energy is always good, and getting minerals is always good. Executive Order 14240, eliminating waste and saving taxpayer dollars by consolidating procurement. This is very important because we have to figure out how you're consolidating procurement, and is it going to be more efficient because it is consolidated, or is it going to be more of a gooseneck bottle situation where you have to go through certain watchdogs. The next executive order, which is signed the next day on the 21st, which was the only one that was signed that day, and it was 14244, addressing remedial action by Paul Wise. And I said that's not important, but if you know Paul Wise, that's very important. And I say that because he's one of the people who is continually contradicting Donald Trump, and he is a lawyer who has been really at the forefront of really taking action towards him, and he's really retaliating against Paul Wise. So it's kind of funny that he had to amend it. So let's move on to the next one, which was signed on the 24th. Executive Order 14245, imposing tariffs on countries importing Venezuelan oil. This was seen as not important to us, but at the same time, it may be important to you. If it is, let me know. Executive Order 14249, protecting America's bank account against fraud, waste, and abuse. This is seen as important because whenever we're talking about people who are stealing identities and taking your money and doing all kind of things with your money you can't do, that's always important. The only problem I have with that is why I take care of the CFBP, and their whole mission was to do that. The next executive order, 14248, preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. This is seen as very important, and it's seen as very important because we are very hypersensitive when it comes to election fraud nowadays, and it is a big deal when we talk about Russian interference and Ukraine interference, and did Hillary Clinton really have those dangerous emails and that server, but then we're able to let Signalgate go like it's not a big deal. I'm not bitter. Moving on. Exit 1427. Executive Order 14247, modernizing payments to and from America's bank accounts, which was signed on the exact same day as the 25th. And I would say this, modernizing it and rushing the job is not going to better it. The only reason why to modernize it in this 4 years and make a big deal is because someone's going to get paid off of it. Moving on. Executive Order 14246, addressing risk from gender and block. I don't know if this is important or not because I don't know what gender and block is about. So I put a question mark there because we just don't know. Executive Order, which was signed on the last day of the March of 31st. Executive Order 14255, establishing a U.S. investment accelerator, which was seen as important because when we talk about investments, that means that it's money that's coming out of taxpayers' dollars, and we got to figure out what kind of investments are being done. So that is very important. I mean, it's not very important for us, but it is important. The next executive order will be 14254, combating unfair practices in the live entertainment market. This was seen as not important. The next one, Executive Order 14253, restoring truth and sanity to American history. Very important. Apparently, this was signed on the 27th. Another one that was signed on the 20th, it was a few of them that was signed on the 27th. Apparently, it was at least four. It was four total that was signed on the 27th. Executive Order 14252, making the District of Columbia, safe and beautiful. This is seen as not important. The reason why is because they've already been putting that money towards there with gentrification. Anyone who is familiar with DC knows that they have been gentrifying for the longest. Executive Order 14251, exclusions from Federal Labor Management Relations Program. This was seen as not important, just because we need to talk to the Labor Department before going off on any kind of tirades. Is it seeing so much other stuff that's important? This is important, but for us, because there's so many things that's important, we're just going to say it's not important for now. Now, the last one that was signed was Executive Order 14250, addressing risk from Wilmer Hall, which was seen as not important, but it really is important because he's targeting people at the same time. Because there's so many executive orders that are important, it's not important for this sake, but it is very important. Let's move on to very important executive orders and kind of like why we should question them. So Executive Order 14225, which is essentially a timber expansion. The title that we can call it will be Chop Now, Regret Later. Summary: accelerates logging activities, raising environmental concerns. Next executive order that's very
nobody's doing that, right?
So
the timber.
I got you, but I'm in this, so let's do the video. Yeah, let me go ahead and go through all of it, then we can talk. All right. So Executive Order 14233, Bitcoin Reserve. Title: Crypto Vault or Mirage. Summary: establishes a federal Bitcoin reserve, prompting questions about federal stability. The next executive order that's very important will be 14238, Bureaucracy Reduction. Title: Streamline or Undermine. Summary: reduces federal agencies, potentially impacting essential services. Executive Order 14236, rescinding prior orders. The reason why it's important is because it's a clean slate or a power play. The summary: revokes previous executive orders, leading to debates over policy reversals. Executive Order 14243, eliminates silos. The title: transparency or surveillance. Summary: promotes data sharing across agendas, raising privacy concerns. Executive Order 14241, which will be mineral productions. Title: dig deep, think deeper. The summary: boost domestic mineral extraction, sparking environmental debates. Executive Order 14240, procurement consolidation. Is it efficiency or monopoly? The summary will be centralizes federal procurement, potentially reducing competition. Executive Order 14248, election integrity, secure or suppress. This is important due to it implements measures for election security with concerns over voter access. Executive Order 1453, and this will be historical narrative, historical rewritten. Summary: alters federal historical presentation, prompting debates on historical accuracy. So the ones that we're going to be going over for future will be additional rescission of harmful executive orders and actions. Executive Order 14240, eliminating waste and saving taxpayer dollars by consolidating procurement. The last one that we're going to be going over next week will be 14253. Oh, fact, hold on. That's what we're going over. Are we going over that today? Yeah, we're going over it today. Restoring truth and sanity to American history. So let's go ahead and look at the ones that were just important. And then once we go over the ones that were just important, we can then go into more dialogue about why some were more important than others, and then what we think are the impacts, and then actually go through the case studies that we have for the day. The important executive orders that were not very important, but were important enough to keep note. Executive Order 14246, legal firm scrutiny. It targets oversight, and the summary will be addresses perceived risk from a specific law firm, raising questions about intent. Executive Order 14255, investment accelerator. It should be fast track or favoritism. And the reason why it's important, again, is it facilitates large investments with concerns over regulatory bypasses. Executive Order 14224, English official language, and it is unity or exclusion. That is the reason why it's important, because it raises the question, is it because you are trying to bring us together or separate us? It designates English as the official language, sparking debates on inclusivity. One thing to have to take note is whenever Americans move to South Africa, we're not necessarily required to speak any of the other uh, dialects, and this is something that has been noted. Let's move on to the next. Executive Order 14235. Again, that'll be Executive Order 14235, loan forgiveness, and it will be relief or restriction. The summary will be restores loan forgiveness with new eligibility criteria, raising fairness concerns. And then we have a few more that was, again, on the important list will be Executive Order 14239, which would be preparedness, efficiency, executive order ready or reduced. Summary aims for efficient preparedness with potential resource allocation issues. Executive Order 14242, education empowerment. It is empower or impede. The summary shifts educational control to local entities, sparking debates on standards. All right, and we are down to the last one, Executive Order 14249. Again, Executive Order 14249, bank account protection. Is it a safeguard or surveillance? Does it impede measures against financial fraud, which may rise privacy concerns? All right, so that concludes all of the executive orders for March. We're now going to go into two uh, case studies. So let's go ahead and dive into the first case study. And the way we do these case studies is we first read the uh, executive order. After we read the executive order, then we go over a review. And in this case, I have two different types of things we're going to be doing. I have a chart and just a regular executive order review. So let's go ahead and go to it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and read it out loud because it's gonna be quicker anyway if I read it. All right, so Executive Order 14240 on March 20th, 2025, eliminating waste and saving taxpayer dollars by consolidating procurement. Section 1 policy: the federal government spends approximately $490 billion per year on federal contracts for common goods and services. The types of goods and services purchased by nearly every executive department and agencies, making it the largest buyer of goods and services in the world. As a matter of sound management, these standardized procurement functions should be carried out in the most efficient and effective manner possible for the American taxpayer. The General Service Administration was established in 1949 through the Federal Property and Administrative Services Act 40 USC 101. ET sequence to provide an economical and efficient system for the core procurement services for agencies. It is time to return the General Service Administration to its original purpose, rather than continuing to have multiple agencies and agency subcomponents separately carry out these same functions in a uncoordinated and less economical fashion. Consolidating domestic federal procurement in the General Service Administration, the agency designed to conduct procurement, will eliminate waste and duplication while enabling agencies to focus on their core mission of delivering the best possible service for the American people. All right, so by definition, these are the definitions. And they basically define what the administration means, they define what the agency is, they define what the agency head is, which would be the only thing that would be of great note. Yeah, so only thing here that would be of great note, the agency head means the highest ranking official of the agency, such as the secretary, administrator, chairman, or director. The next one would be common goods and services, because we need to define that. Means the common government wide categories defined by the Category Management Leadership Council led by the Office of Management and Budget, OMB. And then the last little note that they had dealing with definitions would be indefinite. The delivery contract vehicle means an agreement through which an agency can order goods and services over a defined period without setting forth quantities or a delivery schedule up front. All right. The procurement consolidation. So within 60 days of the date of this order, agency heads shall in consultation with the agency's senior procurement official, submit the administrator's proposal pursuant to 40 USC 101, and then 40 USC 501, or other relevant authorities to have the General Services Administration conduct domestic procurement with respect to common goods and services for the agencies where permitted by law. B, it will be within 90 days of date of this order, the administrator shall submit a comprehensive plan to to the director of OMB for the General Service Administration to procure common goods and services across the domestic components of the government where permitted by law. C, within 30 days of the date of this order, pursuant of the authority in 40 U.S. 101 11302 E, the director of OMB shall designate the administrator as the executive agent for all government-wide acquisition contracts for IT. The administrator, in consultation with the director of OMB, shall defer or decline the executive agent designation for government-wide acquisition contracts for information technology when necessary to ensure continuity of service or otherwise appropriate. The administrator shall further, on an ongoing basis and consistent with applicable law, rationalize government-wide indefinite delivery contract vehicles for information technology for agencies across the government, excluding as part of identifying and eliminating contract duplication, redundancy, and other inefficiencies. All right. The last note will be D. Within 14 days of the date of this order, the director of OMB shall issue a memorandum or memorandum to agencies implementing subsection C of this section. General provisions, all of the general provisions tend to be the same. So I'm not going to go and read it over and over again, because once you start reading the executive orders, you learn that all the general provisions are generally the same. They're saying that it's not going to over supersede this, and it's saying that it's going to be counterable and all that. So let's go to just a outline talking about Executive Order 14240. Kind of doing this out of order. Okay, it actually popped up. All right, so Executive Order 14240, eliminating waste and saving taxpayer dollars by consolidating procurement, which was seen as very important. Implied intent. This executive order appears on its surface to promote government efficiency, but its deeper implications reveal a clear intent to centralize federal procurement authority within the General Services Administration, GSA, thereby reshaping how government agencies operate. This is consistent with broader Project 2025 goals of weakening the administrative state, consolidating power within fewer executive aligned entities, and increases White House control over federal operations. So fewer moving pieces, the more control that the federal government has. Okay, let's talk about the risk and dangers. So the risk will be centralization of power. Implication: by consolidating procurement in the GSA and designating it as the executive agent for all IT contracts, this order limits agencies' independence and increases executive control over operations. The privatization risk: centralized procurement can be precursor to large-scale outsourcing or privatization, especially if vendor contracts are not transparent. Reduces oversight. By doing this, individual agencies losing procurement autonomy may reduce checks and balances, increasing vulnerability to favoritism or corruption. The workforce displacement issue. Contracting offices within agents may face cuts or to be merged, displacing thousands of procurement professionals. The last great risk that we need to really look at will be conflict with mission needs. Agency-specific needs may be overlooked by generalized procurement process that lacks context-sensitive customization. So again, we might have a bunch of different agencies that protect our government services, and a lot of them may overlap, but they are more services and more resources. And it's kind of like throwing away gas. You don't throw away gas, you use your gas. So instead of taking and dumping out the gas at the gas tank, that's kind of like what I'm saying from here. It's like you're wasting your resources. All right, so the impact on Americans abroad. So let's talk about that. Although this executive order focuses on domestic procurement, there are secondary effects. Embassy and overseas services. If procurement for IT in goods at overseas posts is shifted centrally, logistically inefficiency or inflexible vendor contracts could affect consular services, defense support, and security system abroad. The last note of how to impact the Americans abroad will be continuity disruption. The order allows the GSA to defer or decline taking over contracts if continuity is at risk. This introduces uncertainty in the support systems Americans rely on overseas. One thing that I have to take note is something that is happening as far as the IT department. A lot of the IT professionals were cut, and what is happening when it comes to the Social Security benefit office, a lot of times what's going on is they will have to call their IT department in Baltimore, and this may again be someplace in Atlanta, or it may be someplace wherever the Social Security office is. There's only a select few IT offices that they really do have. So the IT office is located in Baltimore, and there may be another one but I don't know if there is. But I do know that there's one in Baltimore that the one in Atlanta does have to rely on, and the one in Baltimore does handle a lot of different offices. If you were to want to suppress the benefits of people, all you would have to do is make the IT department move slow and intentionally stop the flow of the work being done. But that is an angle that I'm not saying that it's happening, but that is an angle that if somebody wanted to make sure that people didn't benefit and wanted to quietly suppress any kind of use of any kind of benefit, that's a great way to do it. Let's go ahead and talk about how it relates to Project 2025. Executive Order 14240 aligns with Project 2025's core objectives, and it does by administrative streamlining, shrinking the footprint of the federal bureaucracy by reducing agency level autonomy. The next note will be executive consolidation, shifting power to centralized loyalist agencies like the GSA increases the president's operational leverage. The last note will be anti-bureaucracy agenda. The order targets what is framed as waste and duplication, which Project 25 identifies as justification to gut or repurpose entire agencies. All right, so let's talk about summarizing the points. Kind of went too far up. No, went too far up. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and summarize the points. So the intent. So the intent centralized procurement under GSA to streamline spending and align executive control. So it's all about executive control. It's not really about waste, fraud, and abuse. The immediate effects removes procurement authority from individual agencies for common goods and IT. So instead of your government departments having their own authority to do things, they'll have to call this whoever they determine to be able to get whatever kind of procurement of goods. They have to go through whatever kind of agency, this new agency, and that's going to slow stuff and create more red tape. Long-term effects weakens agency independence, potentially open doors to politicize it or privatize procurement systems. And again, this is all about weakening government systems. Project 2025 link reinforces themes of executive dominance, bureaucratic dismantling, and agency dependency on centralized leadership. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what federal departments will suffer, how they will suffer under 14240. All right, so who's most affected? Federal departments under Executive Order 14240, and this is considering the Project 2525. DOD vulnerabilities manages massive procurement operations with highly specialized needs, weapons, IT, logistics. Likely outcome may resist GSA centralization, but Project 2025 recommends scripting non-combat functions, shift to GSA for IT and admin procurement. The VA, the vulnerability, operates large-scale hospitals, logistics, and IT procurement networks. The most likely outcome, loss of procurement autonomy for health services and IT systems. GSA-led contracts may not align with veteran-specific clinical standards. When we talk about the Department of HHS, Health and Human Services, manages billions in health-related procurement, CDC, FDA, CMS, etc. And the likely outcome, centralization, could disrupt ongoing public health programs. Project 2025 wants to strip HHS of pandemic infrastructure and vaccine procurement. The Department of Homeland Security, the vulnerability will be it handles procurement across border security, FEMA, and cyber agencies. And the most likely outcome to happen is fragmentation, risk at GSA, consolidates civilian IT while DHS remains critical infrastructure. Project 2025 seeks to defund FEMA preparedness. The next one will be EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. The vulnerability will be procures lab services, and then of course IT and enforcement tools. This will be subject to procurement. Belay my last. The vulnerability will be subject to procurement, freeze, or redirection. Project 2025 targets EPA for deregulatory reforms, which could start with limiting its acquisition power. Department of Education, the vulnerability, heavy reliance on tech tools and grant-related services. The most likely outcome will be may lose procurement discretion for educational platforms. Project 2025 calls for a total dismantling of or outsourcing of DOE functions. Department of Energy manages national labs, advances research contracts, and grid infrastructure. What the most likely outcome be GSA centralization may disrupt specialized research and development procurement. Project 2025 aims to weaken DOE climate programs and redirect funding. GSA, the General Service Administration. If it would gain the vulnerability gains massive power under Executive Order 14240 as central buyer. The most likely outcome, GSA becomes an instrument of political procurement enforcement under Project 2025 at risk of repurposed as a political compliance tool. OPM, Office of Personnel Management, uses contracting for training, IT, and HR platforms. Most likely outcome, faces absorption into broader GSA OMB nexus. Project 2025 recommends dismantling or merging OPM with other executive agencies. The next one, Department of Interior, DOI, manages procurement for national parks, energy leasing, wildland tools. The most likely outcome would be could see interference with conservative programs. Project 2025 supports aggressive deregulation in energy extraction contracts. The last one would be small agencies. Examples given: the NEA or the NSF or the NOAA. Limited bargaining power and specialized needs. That will be how they're vulnerable. The most likely thing that will happen will be likely forced into a one-size-fits-all procurement pool. Project 2025 recommends downsizing or eliminating many of these programs altogether. So the key patterns: agencies with medical, scientific, or educational missions are the most vulnerable to centralized procurement misalignment in Project 2025's ideological filters. The next key pattern will be GSA and OMB will become powerful gatekeepers, turning procurement from neutral administrative functions into a politicized enforcement mechanism. The key pattern, the last one will be agencies tied to the climate change, diversity, equity, healthcare, and education are especially at risk of being starved or of aligned vendors in contract autonomy. So when we talk about the potential real world consequences, loss of mission specific procurement capacity leads to slower disaster responses, less effective healthcare delivery, and education tech mismatches. Let me say it again. In education tech mismatches. The another real world consequences will be political aligned vendors could be prioritized even if more costly or less effective. So again, politically aligned vendors could be prioritized even if more costly and or less effective. Sounds very familiar. If you've seen the South African president come talk to President Trump, you would have seen something similar to them talking about the Starlink initiative that they have, that they just now started. And it was a joke saying that if they had a plane, they would try to gift it to them. And they are basically saying that we are giving you our loyalty to you. South Africa is bending the knee to Trump and saying, hey, give us the Starlink. We need that technology, and we need you to keep our cities safe. And at that point, you're aligning yourself with Trump because Starlink is Starlink is Elon's new baby, and Elon is behind that move right there. And he may not be the most effective person for it, but he is the most connected person. So therefore, he's going to be connected with whatever project that America has that deals with anything that Starlink can do. Please believe Starlink will do it. Now, the last real world consequence that can take place: workforce disruption, as thousands of agency procurement professionals are displaced, reassigned, or politically vetted. All right, so let's go ahead and move to the last executive order. Before I take this one right here, let me okay, one sec. All right, so let's go ahead and get to the last one that we're going to be going over today. This executive order will be restoring truth and sanity to American history. Let me see how long this is. And from here, let's see if I can do the reading. Okay, so it's still not okay. This.
Restoring truth and sanity to American history by the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Section 1. Purpose and Policy. Over the past decade, Americans have witnessed a concerted and widespread effort to rewrite our nation's history, replacing objective facts with a distorted narrative driven by ideology rather than truth. This revisionist movement seeks to undermine the remarkable achievements of the United States by casting its founding principles and historical milestones in a negative light.
All right. I guess it fizzled out. I'll go ahead and finish reading. So again, it says in a negative light. Under this historical revision, our nation's unparalleled legacy of advancing liberty, individual rights, and human happiness is reconstructed as inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, or otherwise irredeemably flawed, rather than fostering unity and a deeper understanding of our shared past. The widespread effort to rewrite history deepens societal divides and fosters a sense of national shame, disregarding the progress America has made and the ideas that continue to inspire Americans around the globe. The prior administration advances this corrosive ideology at Independence National Historical Park in Philadelphia, PA, where our nation declared that all men are created equal. The prior administration sponsored training by an organization that advocates dismantling Western foundations and integrating institutional racism, and pressured National Historical Park rangers that their racial identity should dictate how they conveyed history to visiting Americans, because America is purportedly racist. Once widely respected as a symbol of American excellence and a global icon of cultural achievement, The Smithsonian Institution has in recent years come under the influence of divisive, race-centered ideology. This shift has promoted narratives that portray American and Western values as inherently harmful or harmful and oppressive. For example, the Smithsonian American Art Museum today features the shape of power, short stories of race in American sculpture, and in exhibit representing the societies, including the U.S., have used race to establish and maintain systems of power, privilege, and disenfranchisement. The exhibit further claims that sculptures has been powerful tool in promoting scientific racism and promotes the view that race is not a biological reality but a societal construct, stating race is a human invention. The National Museum of African American History and Culture has proclaimed that hard work, individualism, and the nuclear family are aspects of white culture. The forthcoming Smithsonian American Women's History Museum plans on celebrating the exploits of male athletes participating in women's sports. These are few examples. It is the policy of my administration to restore federal sites dedicated to history, including parks and museums, to solemn and uplifting public monuments that remind Americans of extraordinary heritage. Consistent progress towards becoming a more perfect union and unmatched record of advancing liberty, prosperity, and human flourishing. Museums in our nation's capital should be places where individuals go to learn, not to be subjected to ideological indoctrination or divisive narratives that distort our shared history. To advance this policy, we will restore the Smithsonian Institution to its rightful place as a symbol of inspiration and American greatness, igniting the imagination of young minds, honoring the richness of American history and innovation, and instilling pride in the hearts of Americans. Right. So, section 2 is this? It's not this definition. Let's go ahead and talk about section 2. Saving our Smithsonian. A, the vice president, in consultation with the assistant to the president for domestic policy and the special assistant to the president and senior associate staff secretary, Lindsay Helligan, Esquire, shall work to effectuate the policies of this order through his role on the Smithsonian Board of Regents with respect to the Smithsonian Institution and its museum, education, and research centers, and the National Zoo, including by seeking to remove improper ideology and from such properties, and shall remind and shall recommend to the president any additional actions necessary to fully effectuate such policies. All right. B, the vice president and director of OMB shall work with the Congress to ensure that future appropriations to the Smithsonian Institution. I, prohibit expenditure on exhibits or programs that degrade shared American values, divide Americans by race, or promote programs of ideologies inconsistent with federal law and policies. and celebrate the achievements of women in the American Women's History Museum and do not recognize men as women in any aspect in the museum. C, the director of the OMB and the Secretary of Interior shall take any other measures within their authority to promote policy of this order. Last note, D, as appropriate, the Vice President shall, in consultation with the Assistant of the President of Domestic Policy and Special Assistant to the President and Senior Associate Staff Secretary Lindsay Halligan, Esquire, work with the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the Senator Majority Leader to seek the appointment of citizen members to the Smithsonian Board of Regents committed to advancing the policy of the order. Section 3, restoring Independence Hall. The Secretary of Interior shall provide sufficient funding as available to improve the infrastructure of Independence National Historic Hall Park, which shall be completed July 4th, 2026, the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And Section 4, restoring truth in American history. A, the Secretary of Interior shall, 1, determine whether since January 1st, 2020, public monuments, memorials, statues, markers, or some similar properties within the Department of Interior's jurisdiction have been removed or changed to perpetuate a false reconstruction of American history, inappropriately minimize the value of certain historical events or figures, or include any other improper partisan ideology. And the second thing the Secretary of Interior should do, take action to reinstate the pre-existing monuments, memorials, statues, markers, or similar properties as appropriate and consistent with 43 U.S.C. 1451, ET sequence 54 U.S.C. 100101, and other applicable law. And the last thing the Secretary of Interior should do, take action as appropriate and consistent with applicable law to ensure that all public monuments, memorials, and statues, markers, and similar properties within the Department of Interior's jurisdiction do not contain descriptions, depictions, or other contents that inappropriately disparage Americans past or living, including persons living in colonial times, and instead focus on greatness of achievements and progress of the American people, or one second. And instead focus on greatness of the achievements and progress of the American people, or with respect to natural features, the beauty, abundance, and grandeur of the American landscape. I'm not going to go through the general provisions because all of them are the same. So let's go ahead and so this is going to be the last article that I will be going over with y'all with. And this is just the executive review article, just going over 14253. Okay, so the executive order 14253 summary, restoring truth and sanity to American history. All right, the intent, the stated purpose, reverse what the order calls ideological and revisionist reinterpretation of the U.S. history in federal historical institutions. The next purpose will be eliminate narratives portraying Americans' founding or cultural principles as oppressive, racist, or harmful. The next purpose will be reframe museums, parks, and public monuments as venues for promoting patriotism, unity, and national pride. The last stated purpose will be positioning the Smithsonian Institution, Independence Hall, and public monuments as central tools in a cultural restoration project. So when we talk about the key ideological themes, historical revisionism framed as left-wing indoctrination. The next note will be criticism of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Again, the efforts okay, so it's basically getting rid of anything that has DI as far as monuments that have DI in it. Claims that race and gender related programming undermines national unity. And the last thing, key ideological theme will be assertion that Western values such as individualism and hard work are being misrepresented as oppressive. So major actions ordered. Again, the Smithsonian Institution oversight, the vice president director to cleanse improper ideology from Smithsonian exhibit and programs. The next one will be collaborate with Congress to condition Smithsonian funding. So it's going to be like they're doing to a lot of the colleges where it's based on if you do what I say. This is partly ban on exhibit that degrade shared American values or promote division by race. Another note will be ban on acknowledging transgender individuals in the American Women's History Museum. Last note about that will be OMB and Interior to promote this agenda using administrative and budgetary tools. The second thing will be Independence Hall infrastructure project, renovations at Independence National Historical Park to be completed by July 4th, 2026 in honor of the Declaration 250th anniversary. The third thing will be that they're trying to do with this will be the historical monuments audit and restoration. Interior Secretary must audit any changes, removals of museums since January 1st, 2020. Reinstate original versions if found to be changed by partisan reasons. Last thing the Interior Secretary must do: ensure monuments do not disparage Americans and instead emphasize American greatness of beauty of the natural landscape. It's really okay. All right. So the Smithsonian board appointments. Work with congressional leadership to appoint new regents in the Smithsonian board who align with the executive order's ideological goals. All right. So the entities directly affected. Of course, Smithsonian is affected. And the reason why they're affected is because their centralized political oversight of their content, exhibits, and hiring practices. And if they don't do what they say, their funding will be affected. And due to not being aligning with the ideologically compliance, the OMB, of course, they're going to have to implement all of the ideological conditions on the Smithsonian. So it's more like forcing them to do an extra job, meaning that's not really going to be bad for them, giving them more, providing them extra job security. Department of Interior, they're going to be the ones responsible for quote unquote restoring and protecting historical monuments from ideological reinterpretations. The last two, one of them will be Independence National Historical Park, subject to major renovation as patriotic symbol. And then the last one will be the Vice President's office. Plays a central role in implementing and monitoring historical sanity across the federal sites. All right, so let's talk about the notable consequences concerns, and there's 5 of them. The first concern will be chilling effect of academic freedom in curtailing independence. So we're going to be cutting independence, and we're going to be having the academic freedom being controlled by said who said I believe the Department of Interior mainly. And then censorship of scholarly work related to race, gender, colonialism, and systematic inequality. Anything that makes white pride and whiteness feel bad, they're going to basically vilify. So anything that's kind of slightly true and anything that makes them feel that they have some kind of guilt of what their ancestors have done, they're going to basically make it seem like we should not look at that at all. And the thing is, if we don't look at that, then we're not going to look at people like Adolf Hitler. And if you don't look at people like Adolf Hitler or Leopold the Great, or Leopold, as I call him, my devil Leopold, I call Leopold the Great the devil to me. You kill millions of Africans, but we don't talk about that. Let's move on. So the third thing will be trans exclusionary language becomes federal policy within scope of museum content. The next one, number 4, may empower ideological purges of exhibits, historians, or federal funded educators. And the last one will be codifies a highly subjective definition of truth and shared values tied to political ideologies. So here's a list, really a chart, and this will be the last thing that we're going to be going over. So when you talk about 14253, we talk about the components of what they got. The anti-revisionist history agenda, the description claims U.S. history has been destroyed by race, gender-focused narratives, and the way this aligns to 2025, eliminate left-wing ideology in federal education and cultural institutions, return to patriotic education. So that's what it claims that it does, but it's really to get rid of DUI. Mirage Project 2025's push for pro-American curricula and rejection of DEI-based reinterpretations. So again, it's not really to combat revisionists. It's really to stop anybody from making anybody white feel bad. And I'm not afraid to say that, because why in the world are we able to have white South Africans come, but we're not able to have people from other parts of Africa come without getting the evil eye from the president and being called not good immigrants? And so moving on. So Smithsonian oversight by executive. Again, the VP to purge improper ideology from exhibits, budget control led tied to ideologies, and the way it ties to the Project 2025, racism, my bad, reclaim federal cultural institution from liberal influences. And the last note will be politically vet board appointments, and it politicizes federal museums, aligning with Project 2025's call to assert ideological control over public institutions. The next few notes is just really it's okay. It's just a few notes. Okay, so. All right, so Independence Hall renovations, 250th major patriotic infrastructure project. The two things that how it aligns with Project 2025. It celebrates American exceptionalism, meaning that really isolationism is the thing I'm thinking that they're really referring to. And then exceptionalism. Oh, exceptionalism, saying they're American exceptional. And then use national milestones for ideological affirmation. Serves as symbolic function, reinforcing national pride as advocated by Project 2025. And then we talk about the audit and restoration of monuments. This undue changes since 2020, since seen as driven by leftist ideology. Reverses Obama-Biden era changes in historical interpretation. It also preserves traditional depictions of American figures, and it supports the Project 2025's revision rollback efforts in federal spaces. So we got two more of this. We have trans exclusionary language in museums. It will be prohibits recognizing trans women as women in women's history exhibits. It also bans government. This is how Project 2025. How it ties with Project 2025. It bans government recognition of gender identity and policy. Last part will be institutionalized sex-based distinctions, and it deep alignment with the bioethics and gender-related policy platform in Project 2025. The last thing that will be of note will be executive broad board appointments to influence cultural. Calls for appointments of ideological aligned Smithsonian regents. The two ways it does affect, the two ways it ties into Project 2025 will be centralized control of independent boards, and then it ensures conservative values in public-facing institutions. And the way it ties in, it will be Project 2025 seeks to replace non-political or liberal leaning governance bodies with ideological vetted leaders. So again, they are looking for loyalists. And the overall alignment, very high. Executive Order 14253 embodies key Project 2025's objectives, particularly one, by dismantling DEI and woke frameworks in cultural and educational spaces. Two, promoting patriotic education and traditional narratives. Three, politicizing museum content in federal monument policy. And the last one, number 4, enforcing gender exclusion in federal recognition in public institutions. So, as we do about this time, I really appreciate those who have stayed and listened to all of the executive orders in March. They are a bunch there in the March. And next week, we're going to be going over all the ones that were done in April. Also, we are going to be going over a couple of the executive orders for next week. And for next week, we're going over 2 executive orders. We're going over Executive Order 14277, which will be advancing artificial intelligence education for American youth. Again, I'm going to say it again because this is very important. Think about what I'm saying. Advancing artificial intelligence education for American youth. Think about who's going to be implementing these changes. Linda McMahon, the WWF CEO. All right, the wife of the CEO. All right, so, and the other executive order we are going to be looking at will be 14288, which will be strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. And again, I'm going to say this one more time because it's very important. Next week, outside of going over April's executive orders, we're going to be going over 14288, strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and to protect innocent citizens. So again, next week, those are going to be the 2 case orders I will be going over, with also going over the case or the the executive orders of April. Once we get up to date, we're going to be doing it monthly. Until then, I'll see you. This has been a pleasure that you have been with me and talking to me, email, and this has been For Democracy.
Pauline's Pizza, where we deliver happiness one slice at a time. What's your craving today?
Hi, can you tell me about your menu?
Of course. We offer handmade pizzas with different crusts like thin crust, original, or deep dish. We also have fresh salads, pastas, and both bone-in and boneless wings. Would you like to hear about our specialty pies or any current special deals?
Do you have any gluten-free options?
Yes, we do. Our gluten-free crusts are super tasty, but there's a $3 upcharge. Would you like me to go over the options with you?
Great. What's the largest size pizza you offer?
Our largest size is the extra large pizza, perfect for feeding a crowd. Plus, if you upgrade to an extra large, you'll get a free 2-liter soda. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Can I get that gluten-free?
Absolutely. You can get the extra large with a gluten-free crust. What toppings would you like on your pizza?
Do you offer any vegan cheese options?
Yes, we do. Our vegan cheese is delicious and comes with a $3 upcharge. Would you like to add that to your gluten-free pizza?
Yeah.
Great choice. So we've got an extra large gluten-free pizza with vegan cheese. Any other toppings you'd like to add?
Well, one moment. What about hosting an event? Do you have any space for a birthday party?
Yes, we do host parties and offer catering. Let me get your email address so I can send over our catering plans. How many people are you planning to invite?
I left my sunglasses there last week. Can you check if they're still there?
I can definitely check for you. Can you describe the sunglasses for me?
They're black with silver frames.
Thanks for the details. I'll have someone check on that for you. Is there anything else I can help with today?
No, that's all for now. I'll call back later. Thanks.